All right, everybody, thank you for listening to and being part of this episode about Google Ads shopping. We have some great guests lined up, a lot of variety, as always, as what we focus on. Just a friendly reminder, if you can leave 5 stars, leave a review. I know it takes time and effort, but I promise you, we will keep delivering some awesome value to you because we can actually get better guests on the show and also have just more resources because we're becoming more popular. So that kind of says itself. Also, reminder, this episode is sponsored by Client Boost, which is our pay-per-click and CRO agency doing Google ads, doing Facebook ads, like everything PPC related, basically. And Kite, which is our pay-per-click software too. So check them out. Let us know if you want to give things a shot, and we'll figure that out too. So today we're going to be talking to Kirk Williams from ZATO Marketing, a friend of mine who's done a lot of speaking on stage, a lot of speaking in general off stage. Really good at what he does. It's going to help us about the fundamentals of Google Shopping, what you need to keep in mind. We're going to be talking to Brian Roizen from Feedonomics, one of the co-founders there when it comes to feed data, how you structure your feed, how that's important for Google Shopping performance. And then we're going to cap it off with Reese Garcia, who's our own director of e-commerce. But I just reminded myself that I don't think there's any particular order of the people you're going to listen to. You're going to listen to all of them. So thanks for being here, and let's get excited.
Ever wonder why some companies grow faster than others? What are they doing differently? And what are their secret ingredients? That's what this podcast is all about. Welcome to Boost Sauce.
Hello, this is Kirk.
Hey, Kirk, Johnathan and Reese over here at Boost Sauce. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you guys?
Awesome. We're excited to talk to you, man. Want to give you a quick shout out. This is, for people listening, this is Kirk Williams, founder of, I'm going to not pronounce this correctly, ZATO. Is that correct?
Close. ZATO.
ZATO.
Although, curiously, most people do pronounce it ZATO the first time around. So maybe I missed the boat on that.
All right. ZATO Marketing out of Billings, Montana. And we're going to talk about Google Shopping. So wanted to like kind of give you the floor and give people like the lowdown, maybe like the fundamentals, and start with, what is Google Shopping?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. So Google Shopping started just on the Google Search Network, and the idea was rather than just the text ads, especially back in the day, which was the way Google rolled, they identified a kind of a need for consumers to see a visual representation of that product as well as get vital information for that, so pricing, things like that, and put that in this a little ad format. Put that into search results on e-commerce searches, and really they've seen that become just a really popular ad type. Obviously, rather than kind of have to root through the text ads and that, you see the product that you're searching for, like right, a picture's worth 1,000 words. You see it, you're like, yeah, that's the product. You see the price. You can, usually there's 6 or so, depending on which of the shopping ad types it is, and those keep expanding. There's a few different price points that you can see and kind of compare and get an idea of how much does this cost and all that. So it's basically just a way that Google, Bing does it as well now. Have a way of displaying products and then easy to see, get your information, so you know exactly what you're doing. So
love it, and I think, like from a very oversimplification of it, like you said before too, in the past it was just text ads where there wasn't a visual of the product. There wasn't, you could mention the price, but then you kind of like have these more serious buyers coming through because they've kind of already been filtered out by seeing the visual, by seeing the price versus just a text ad. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, I think so. There's also that level, you alluded to this, there's also kind of the requirements thing that's a really good thing, that encourages trust too with a shopping ad. So, a text ad, someone can see a text ad that says, hey, buy these pair of Nike shoes, right? But then you click on it and like they can dump you anywhere. You could land on winter coats or something, and sure, Google's developed things like quality score and stuff to help whatever. But for the most part, that can still happen. Like a shopping ad, that landing page has to be that product that was represented, that has to be easily added, that you can add it to a cart. that kind of thing as well. So I think that just helps with the product type as well. You see it, you know that when you click on it, that's what you're going to see and find. And I think that's also part of why people do like them. They can trust them.
Didn't even remember that. That's so true. What, let's say that you're a retailer and you're about to, get into Google Shopping. Like what kind of things do you need to have ready as like a mental checklist?
Yeah. So I like to say there's kind of 3 crucial steps, and sure, there's going to be a lot of details within those steps, but the first is you've got to have a product feed. And that, kind of think like a spreadsheet, right? I mean, that's what a feed is. It's just a list of products and specific data points that Google asks for. You got to make sure you get their data points. And the way that then you have to take that feed and then you upload it to the second thing to know, the area, which is the merchant center. So Google and Bing both have their merchant centers. And what that does is that processes the feed. And that's where they make sure that, hey, you entered the data correctly into this spreadsheet or into the feed. You have that information. It's correct, all that. Once they see, yep, this product looks like it's a good one. This looks like, this is what we want to see. Then you're eligible to show. You're still not able to advertise it yet because now you need to do step 3, which is taking the Google Ads or Bing Ads platform. Then you have to sync that with the merchant centers. And then that's where you actually place and bid on the ads for Google Shopping. So again, without any one of those 3 steps, you're not going to be advertising for shopping, but with all 3 of those, you'll be on your way.
All right, cool. So let's do, is it a good use of time to break those like 3 main things down a little bit and see what kind of nuggets we can get out of them?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Let's start with the feed. You mentioned there's some like specific requirements that Google has. Let's say that you follow them. Are there any additional things that you can do to, I guess, make your feed perform better? Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah. So, and this is worth pointing out maybe at this time is, so the way that Google and Bing match your ads to the search queries, the search terms. So, right, when a user goes into Google and they say, I want the best pair of Nike shoes, which I'm not necessarily a Nike lover. That's just the first thing that keeps coming to my mind. It sounds
like you are, though.
I did read Shoe Dog.
Oh,
an
nice.
amazing book, by the way.
I love Nike. Everybody can attest to it, but I have not read that book. That's I'm not true. I'm not true like you, Kirk. I'm not a true fan.
Well, ironically, I loved Adidas growing up. And ever since I read that book, I don't think I had realized that Nike was actually kind of the underdog in that story. So
back in the day,
it was a good book. Yeah. I hadn't really realized the story until seeing that. It was a cool story.
Cool.
Anyways, we digress. But yeah, so someone types that, I want a pair of Nike shoes into Google. So with a search ad, right, what they're doing is they're matching that up to your keywords. So you probably have some variation of Nike shoe that you've entered as a keyword. This is kind of old school ways, right? With Google changing everything and everything going automated, this might not last forever. But still in the idea of keywords with search terms, you bid on the keyword, you assign some sort of value to that. With shopping, it's not that way. You're not bidding on a keyword. You're bidding on your product, in essence, your product group. And so how Google takes the search terms and says, hey, what would be a good product to match with this? That information is a little bit of the bid that you enter and then a lot of the feed data that you've sent. So they're going to look at that feed data.
Is it more the feed? Like, is there a percentage of like, how much is the bid? How much is the feed data?
I don't know. And that's the kind of thing where Google is not going to say that probably ever because, they're always concerned about people not gaming the system. I've definitely found that there's some level of, it's kind of one of those, like, you have to have at least some level of correct information in there, right? In order to be eligible to show. And then you definitely can see some jumps for sure by editing some things that we can discuss like title and stuff. But for the most part, once you have basic information, then bidding smartly is really, really a crucial aspect to all that. But I mean the feed aspects of it definitely are true. I alluded to that. So if Google is utilizing your feed data to match to search terms, then obviously it stands to reason that, hey, if you've done some research and you have some solid keywords, some solid ways of describing your products in your product title, your description, things like that, then yeah, you should be more eligible to match up, because Google is able to see, hey, this product really it does have to do with that search term. So yeah, optimizing feed definitely is a part of that.
Okay.
Are there any go-to optimizations in the feed that you usually look for?
I think title is probably the most significant best bang for your buck optimization that you can do. Just because it's both the Google algorithm, bringing that into their algorithm to play well with that. But then it's also like users can see that as well. Like if you're showing for that and you have a good title and it's more clickable, you can increase your click-through rate in that. So definitely title. And what we like to say is kind of at the base level, figure out your ideal title formula for your products, but even different segments of your products. So maybe that's something like, and this is to me where you test titles, you try these things. Maybe that means something like, hey, we're going to try product brand, and then like product color, and then size, and then maybe some modifiers, describing it. See how that does. And then maybe you switch some of those around in your formula. So maybe next time you say, hey, we've seen in our search terms report, a ton of people search by color, right? For this product brand. Let's try to put color at the beginning, right? Red Nike shoes. I think that's where you can actually start. Once you start testing those, that's when you can start to see that you do see some impression or click-through rate jumps in that aren't directly related to, as much as things in the market or your bidding or that. And that's when you can start to identify, title test improvements and make them.
Are you mostly using the search terms to decide on what like title formula you're using? Does that kind of dictate it mostly, or how do you come about that?
Yeah, so we'll use the search terms report, especially when we have that data, right? Especially if it's a new account, we'll do just using some basic keyword research type tools. Honestly, I like Keyword Planner in Google. Doesn't cost anything. It's there and it works, and it gives some level. To me, what it does is it gives some insight into, hey, these keywords about this product that you're researching, these are more often how people search. So that's probably how they and Google see it. So let's think initially about doing that as our title, as part of the title, especially in the beginning. And kind of see where it goes from there. Title testing and other like feed testing with Google is not an exact science, because you can't make a perfect test. You cannot test elements at the same time,
right.
Which is really problematic. For
Too many moving parts.
So it really, it's kind of an art, because you might think, hey, well, this really changed something, and then you might realize, oh, actually, looking at Auction Insights, competitors are doing some weird things. So actually, I have no idea if that title test I did actually change that, or if it was just the market,
Yeah.
Can you
put emojis in titles? I don't even know. Just a question.
I don't know that.
If it just like looks different and comes through as like the results on Google and like that stands out, I wonder what the click-through rate difference would be. We'll come back to you guys. We'll test that and see if it's possible. Okay. Anything else on that before we go? Like, moving on, I'm sure there's a lot more we can talk about from like the feed perspective. You mentioned title. Like what's the next important thing? Is that the description? Or is that the visual?
I think probably the visual is where I'd go next. Description is important too, but as I've talked to just different feed, product feed specialists at Google and Bing and that, it does sound like, I always get the sense that like, yeah, keep description updated and good, but also it's not like it's that important. It's just always the sense I've always gotten from them and from testing and stuff. So I do think the image is visual. some of that, a big part of that being, here's where, again, we get into the messiness of Google's algorithms and then them not really telling us anything except bits and pieces of information. But with shopping, this is something a lot of people maybe do not know, but shopping actually has a quality score, just like Google keywords, search terms, search keywords, but it's not, it's at the product, the item ID level is your shopping quality score. And as far as I know, that's never like shown you or said anywhere. It's kind of this entity that's just known. But it's not like you're not told, hey, your quality score for this product is blah, blah, blah.
But you can actually see it inside the account or
no?
No. How do you figure it out then?
Yeah. You don't, as far as I know. And maybe that's one of those things, or maybe there's some listener who's like done some reverse engineering or something. I don't know. But it is one of those things. And some of that, by the way, where that has really come into conversation with like Googlers that I've talked to and stuff is, let's just go really, really deep specific for a second. Let's say we've had products in Google Merchant Center that really have an issue with getting through some random stupid policy filter. And that is like there will be times when there are aggressive filters in Google Merchant Center that actually are not accurate. So, for instance, we've had restaurant equipment parts that were disapproved for nudity in the images, which it's like it's an electric timer. You know what I mean?
That turns some people on. Don't judge.
Right. I have no idea. So, but Google's concerned about that, right? And so, even going through manual requesting or reviews and all that stuff, and we've had Google specialists tell us, and this works. Hey, the last thing that you can try, unfortunately, is change your item ID, and they'll note as part of that is that's always the last resort though, because that resets your product quality score. So there is there is history tied to these item IDs. That's part of it in terms of how well have these products done in the past as well, and that's part of the algorithm. All that going back to images is because my understanding is that similar to keyword, that there is some level of click-through rate as well in there in kind of that history, and so some of that being hey, getting some great images that can help just increase traffic, increase clicks, increase click-through rate, in a way that obviously is still, attractive and accurately represents your product and all that, is just always a good thing too. So, okay. So definitely give images a try.
Awesome.
I was really curious. I don't want to switch gears on us too much from talking about the feed, but I know you mentioned that the feed is really important, and so is setting bids the right way. And I was really curious about how you go about that, if you prefer a more manual approach or more of a smart bidding approach. Really curious what that looks like.
Yeah, no, good. Yeah, that's a great question. That kind of gets into that third realm, which is, the Google Ads aspect of it, right? And I mean, that's totally up to you, Jonathan. We can shift.
Let's talk about,
because that's kind of a big conversation.
Well, is there a lot to touch on the Google Merchant Center side, or is that kind of like the lesser of the three?
It's the lesser of the three, but there are maybe just a couple of things to note with Merchant Center. Like one just would be, especially if someone's hearing this and they're like, hey, what do I even do? Like, how do I get started?
Yeah.
There are different ways to upload your feed. If you're getting this rolling, you're trying to bootstrap this business and you're doing this yourself and you don't have a very big product, database yet, you can actually just use Google Drive, just Google Sheets. They even have a template and everything for you, and just fill that data in. I've assisted someone once. I think they had like 5 products, and I just like, here, just get me the information. I grabbed the information from their site from them, and I had it up and running in like 15 minutes, Wow. And so it is really, really easy if you don't have too complicated. Otherwise, you might need to look into a feed provider like a Feedonomics or a Data Feed Watch, is that they can assist with some of the more complex aspects of that. And so just kind of being aware of that.
Some of the stores, right? Like the storefronts too have some built-in like Shopify and things like that. So if you are on one of those platforms, I think it makes it easier too, right?
Yep. Yeah. They just connect to the API and then get you up. The only thing I'll say with that so especially like from a beginner thing, absolutely like click that Shopify button and get into Google Merchant Center and get rolling. The only thing I'll note is that you do have limitations with what you can do in terms of editing the feed and that with sometimes with some of those API connections, although now going a little bit deeper again with even feed rules and stuff, feed rules working better with API than they did in the past where you can go in and run title tests and stuff directly in Merchant Center with feed rules. Hey, that's not as problematic as it used to be. But yeah, so yeah, you can do the API connection through exactly like you said, Shopify's little app. So there are many ways to get your feed up, kind of depending on how much work you want to do or how much money you want to pay someone to do it. The only other thing probably that's really worth calling out that I like to call out on Merchant Center is watching your disapprovals actually. This was explained to me by a couple of Googlers, and it took me like a while and some questions to kind of really try to understand what they were saying. Basically, with your Google like disapprovals in Google Merchant Center, there are actually these differing levels of filters. Basically, in terms of how aggressive they're going to be watching your account. Which, if that really sounds like all crazy and Illuminati, for you, it kind of does for me too. But basically, if you're like the problem kid and you just have disapprovals all the time, and there's a high percentage of your products are disapproval, stuff like that, Google's going to be much more aggressive. Yeah. If you have, restaurant equipment parts and nudity, they're just going to have these increasingly focused levels of filters, which also explains sometimes why you might have products where you're like, hey, we've been running this product for a year, and all of a sudden, why is it disapproved now? You might have shifted into another level of filtering. Of them kind of focused on your account. And so, as I've been told, keep as much as it is possible, keep those disapprovals cleaned out, basically. Like play nice with Google, let them know that you're kind of a white hat, like, hey, trying to do everything right here, and stay out of their focus.
Yeah.
Otherwise they can make life hard.
I believe it. All right, we got some like 5 minutes left. Let's talk about the bidding side and what you prefer on that, and then we see how far we can get.
Yeah. Okay, 5 minutes. There's the manual bidding and automated bidding, and especially now there's new smart shopping, which I'm sure a lot of people who have been listening to have been hearing as well, which is kind of like the aggressively automate everything black box. Kind of on the manual bidding, what we've done and found successful, and we still are finding this successful, is as much as possible, we try to break out our product groups, similar products, kind of broken out by different things, whether that's categories or categories, brands. We'll even throw custom labels in there in terms of, hey, specific price point products. Because the more similar products are, especially in how they're going to be purchased, the more you want to match your bidding up to those. You don't want to bid the same amount on a $20 pair of sunglasses as you are like a $5,000 fur coat or whatever it might be, right? And so I think you got to be smart in how you segment out your campaigns first of all. And then kind of a bidding method introduced to us years back by a guy from Germany, Martin Rotgerding is his name, is one that I've used for years and it still works great. And that's to basically you segment out your campaigns so that you can do a little bit of a hack way of bidding according to search term buying intent. And the real quick version of that, since I probably have like a minute left, is
20 seconds.
Basically, it'll
you got time.
Basically, it allows you to say, "Hey, I'm going to segment out these campaigns so that I can bid, less aggressively and save budget on someone typing in the word bicycle, right? Because there can be a lot of different intent there, and there's a lot more search volume, so you can blow a lot of budget if you're selling, let's say, Trek bikes on the term bicycle. But you might not necessarily want to exclude it completely. And so this allows you to pull out with the same products, pull out those search terms so you can bid less aggressively on bicycle and more aggressively on someone typing in, I want to buy specifically the Trek FX2 bike, right? Because basically them already communicating your brand and maybe even that product number, that model number, is a person who is showing you by their search intent that they're much further along in the search funnel. And therefore, more likely than not, you want to give them a higher bid. And with this kind of strategy, you can do that. So for the person listening who's like, what the heck did he just say? You can go and check out the video by Martin Rockerding online, and
we'll find that.
Maybe that
we'll add that to the notes too.
Fantastic. That'd be fantastic. That might be easiest. And then I wrote a Search Engine Land article on that, on search term bidding through shopping a few years back, but it still is very applicable. And it's kind of this direct walkthrough that walks you through. This is exactly how you set that up. And both of those should be helpful.
Awesome. What are your thoughts on the whole smart bidding side and the smart shopping campaigns? Like him, hate him, love him? Indifferent.
Like ongoing testing still haven't not hate them. I don't hate them and I don't love them.
Yeah.
We so far just have seen times where smart bidding, especially T-ROAS. Truthfully, I've just not done a lot of TCPA, like of CPA bidding with shopping. I know some people who do, but we tend to be a little bit more on thinking in the ROAS mindset. So we've tried T-ROAS. We'll see it work. We'll see it, struggle at certain times in that. We've definitely done a lot of testing with smart shopping too lately. And yeah, a few just, thoughts, would be with smart shopping. That's basically Google's black box where you kind of push it live and say, okay, go Google. And they find anything, anywhere on any of their properties, YouTube, Gmail, search, display, anything, and show shopping ads, and then try to hit your target ROAS. We've seen that work, and we've seen it struggle. We've seen it work real well in a number of campaigns and then start to struggle over time. We've seen it be too aggressive on the remarketing side. So we're concerned about, losing out on, on kind of the top of funnel, demand creation type side too. And then there's still just not a lot of data that they give, which is also concerning. So, just to be blunt, if let's say you ran smart shopping campaigns for the next year, you shut everything off and just ran smart shopping campaigns, that would be 1 year that you would look back on and have zero search terms, to be able to have any insight into for any reason, negative or positive in shopping. Zero. Well, there is a little bit of a hack way to see placements now that I wrote a blog on, but still not all the placements that they're on. YouTube videos, audiences, even network. You can't even see what network is doing, like how YouTube's doing with spend compared to search. You can't even see that. So some alarming data transparency that needs to improve as well.
Yeah, no, we've seen the same thing, felt the same way. Same thing with like display. Like you said, it's a black box. But Kirk, we're running out of time, man. We want to thank you for giving us some solid fundamentals on Google Shopping, and we'll probably bring you back for the evolution of different types of shopping campaigns. Maybe on Facebook, we talked about Bing and all that stuff. So we're super appreciative.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Talk soon, man.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right. Bye. All right, Brian, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. So everybody listening, we have Brian, and let me know if I pronounce this correctly, Roizen?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. The co-founder and chief architect at Feedonomics. Didn't even know you guys were based in LA, a little bit north from where we are. But we're going to be talking to you about Google Shopping ads, the importance of feed optimization. And with us together here today, we have actually Reese, our own director of e-commerce on our side. So, Brian, can you give us a little bit of a breakdown as to like why people need Feedonomics in their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. So we basically exist to help retailers optimize their product data before it goes to marketing channels like Google Shopping, Facebook, and even marketplaces like Amazon, Walmart, and eBay. So what we do is we basically take product data that may be living on your website, whether you're a Shopify, a BigCommerce, or really any kind of store, and we optimize it. So we make sure that all the right words are in the right places, that we categorize your products, and then send it off to Google Shopping, to Amazon, and hundreds of different marketing channels.
Cool. Awesome. When you look at your feed, there's obviously a way that you can do it manually. And as you get more products, more SKUs, it becomes harder to do that and manage it at scale. What's like, can you take us through like the beginners of Feedonomics users to like the advanced ones and like what they find great use of with the product?
Yeah, absolutely. So back when I was, before we even started Feedonomics, I was actually in the agency space managing feeds for about 50 e-commerce clients. So I got to experience every kind of feed platform out there, including doing it manually in Excel. And when you've got a couple of products, you can kind of open it up in Excel. It's a feed. So you've got rows and columns. You can see what are all the titles, what are all the brands. And you start to see these problems that happen over and over and over again. You might have a brand name that is Nike Corporation instead of just Nike, but there's no way that's how people actually search for it on Google or on Amazon. So these are all things that you want to fix. You want to normalize these or fix these attributes that might otherwise not match how people are searching. So, for example, you might have titles. Like if you go to Nike's website, you might find a title that just is Air Jordan, 2 words. It doesn't even have a noun in there. It doesn't have the word Nike in there. And oftentimes we find that retailers have websites that don't have these really rich key attributes. Because if you're on Nike's website, you already know this is a Nike product. Mm-hmm. You already know what the brand is, so they're not going to include it. But when you're sending that data to Google, to Amazon, or wherever else for marketing, you want to make sure it matches how people search. So what I do when I encounter a new retailer is I look at sometimes one by one. We've, of course, built a more automated way of doing this in Feedonomics. So if you've got tens of thousands of products or even millions of products, it can kind of analyze your feed in a very systematic way. So we can see, do you have titles that contain your brand, titles that contain your noun? Like if you're selling dresses, do you have descriptive words like color and size in your product titles? And those are all really, really good things that you want to check. If you don't have a feed platform, you should still definitely check them manually. And you want to fix those. You want to make sure that the way that people search for product data matches what you have in the feed. So one example is, let's say we want to start running. We might want to buy some running shoes. So your very first search on Google might literally be running shoes. But as you do your research, you're going to narrow it down to a specific brand, a specific color. You probably know your shoe size. Your product search is going to change over time. So it might go from running shoes to Nike Air Max 3 running shoes, size 12, black.
That's literally what I'm wearing right now. Almost.
I read your mind. And so when it changes like that, someone who has that far more detailed search is far more likely to buy. And that's when you want to get them. And that's why you want to make sure that the data you send to all these marketing channels, and especially Google Shopping, matches what people are searching for as they get further down that purchase funnel.
Gotcha. And, of course, want to make sure, it sounds like we want to make sure we have as complete and accurate a feed as possible. Are there any values that you feel like any values in the feed that are especially crucial for advertisers to really nail?
Yeah, I would say the most important one, start with your title. Because at a very high level, and I don't want to, pretend like I know all about how Google's machine learning and AI works, but at a high level, title, brand, and descriptive attributes that are in product type are some of the most important when it comes to relevancy. A lot of times we see people completely neglect product type. They just use the word clearance, for example, or seasonal, or something that's too general. But we found through extensive A/B testing that product type actually is included in relevancy. So if you're selling running shoes, you want those words in there because it will help you, one, spend less than you have to with Google and improve your impression share. So those are the key ones I would say to optimize. And then if I had to name a fourth, I would say make sure that you categorize your products correctly. A lot of people kind of like with product type take the easy way out with Google product category. And they basically make it just the word clothing if you're selling dresses. They don't get granular enough, so they don't get all the way into, is it a wedding dress? Is it a normal dress? Is it a bridesmaid dress? But those are really important ones because if everyone else is doing them, you're probably not going to show up if you're going into that most general category. So those are some really important ones for Google Shopping in particular.
Cool. What in regards to the like split testing or being experimental when it comes to your feed, obviously you have like the main core things that you just even talked about, like the 4 main points that make it higher quality so that you can get a higher impression share and win more auctions. Is there anything like unknown or things like that that's really not common that you found pretty surprising that people were using to their advantage?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's it always surprises me, and
not that the other parts weren't good.
It's really interesting. Like one of the questions that I've had ever since I started messing around with product feeds and data is it better to put brand at the very beginning of your title or at the end of it? And the answer is really surprising. It depends. It depends on the vertical. It depends on what categories of product you sell, and it depends on what your brand name is. And the best way to test, because we can do all sorts of A/B testing for titles and images inside of Feedonomics, but the best way to test this is to see how are people actually searching for it. So are people searching for Nike Air Jordan shoes, or are they searching for Air Jordan shoes by Nike? And in general, the best approach is to structure it the same way that you anticipate people will search for it. So we came out with this interesting product that we call Feedonomics that does exactly that. What it does is it marries actual converted search terms from Google Analytics and Google Ads into your actual feed data. So you can see on a one-by-one product basis, what are rich words to insert into titles. And we recently did this with Barney's of New York, where we tested a few of their best sellers. And it was crazy. By inserting 1, sometimes 2 words, you could literally improve a product's impression share by 2x and a corresponding drop in their cost per acquisition or CPA. So that was a really, really interesting one, just by messing around with A/B testing and looking at converted search terms and inserting them into some of your product data attributes.
That's crazy. So do you feel like when you say it depends, does it depend on how well the brand name is known? Like the Nike example, right? Like if that is more well-known, you have it in front. If it's less well-known, do you have it in the back? Like, is there like a soft rule that you can maybe guide us towards?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So if you're a well-known brand and you've got a lot of branded searches, which you can easily verify in Google Ads or Google Analytics in the search query reports, you should absolutely, in general, try at the very beginning. Okay. But if you're just starting your brand out and you're not seeing very many branded searches yet, the hope is one day you'll get there, but you should start off by putting your brand at the end. It could also be interesting to split test putting a brand for some product variants in the beginning and for some putting it at the end and just seeing what the results will be, because that way you can kind of cater to the best of both worlds. But it's definitely something that can be tested.
Is there, and this is just me not knowing, but is there value to having different feeds for different platforms? Because Google Ads is one, Amazon can be another one, eBay can be a third. Like they behave differently, right? Like the intent of searches, or are they pretty similar?
Yeah, some of them are pretty similar. For example, Google Shoppings and Facebook's are almost the same exact one, and same with Microsoft Ads. I keep wanting to say Bing Ads,
I know, us too.
They renamed it. But there are others that are very, very different. For example, Amazon. Their feed specs are totally different than what Google Shopping requires. And some of the most important differences are around product title length. So on Google Shopping, the character length might only be 80 characters that show up initially before you start to see those ellipses. And so you want to pay very close attention to that, because if you're stuffing a lot of very good attributes that people may be searching for, but they're not even showing up, people are not as likely to click on your ads. And on the flip side, Amazon has a lot more character space. So you often see on Amazon searches, people are including far more attributes in their searches because the titles are far longer. And then the other one is, even though Google and Facebook have a very similar feed specification, one important difference is the images. So on Google Shopping, the images don't necessarily have to be square. But on Facebook, when you ultimately see that image in your Facebook news feed, whether you're on the mobile apps or on desktop, the images are going to actually be very, very square. And so if you have rectangular images, which happens all the time with, fashion clients where you've got a vertical dress, but it's not a square image, it's not going to look great. So one thing we've done for those kind of cases is we've padded the images just for Facebook and not for Google, so that it looks much nicer and richer when it's actually in your newsfeed. So those are some interesting optimizations that you might want to do differently for some channels.
Okay, for sure. And a little bit earlier, we were talking about how your data is structured in your feed for Google can affect, anything from impression share to your cost per clicks and ultimately your cost per conversion. I'm really curious if you've seen anything similar with how data in a Facebook feed can be structured in terms of how it can affect your cost per 1,000 impressions, or how certain audiences might be served, or if more of the value there is in the image rather than like product titles, for example.
Yeah, it's also a great question. What we've seen on Facebook is, because no one's necessarily doing a search on Facebook, they're just seeing an ad of a product that they potentially added to the shopping cart or viewed at some point. So the key thing that you have to realize is people need to be reminded of that product as much as possible, and you of course have a very short attention span of the user to do it. So you want to include attributes that not something that they would necessarily search for, but attributes that remind them of that product. For example, if your product on your website is a magenta dress, for example, you want, and maybe magenta is kind of a weird word, you might want to normalize that color to purple so that they don't have to do mental math, because you literally have them for less than a second, right? So you want to very, very quickly remind them of that exact product. You want to include very rich attributes like nouns. If you don't have the word dress in your product title, you should probably add it there. You also want to make sure that your images, like I mentioned earlier with the rectangular versus square, that they look really good. So what I recommend doing is always checking your product sets on Facebook to make sure that they actually look good across their different categories. Because if you sell multiple categories, you might have products that might be t-shirts that look fine, but the dresses could look terrible. So definitely check. Trust but verify is a good slogan there.
Always, everything. What haven't we asked you, Brian, that you think is important to know for people listening?
Sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, I was asking, what haven't we asked that you think is important for the listeners to know?
One thing that, speaking of slogans, one thing we say a lot at Feedonomics is don't have a set it and forget it approach for feeds. So if someone were to tell you that's what I do for campaigns, I set it up once and I never look at it again, like you'd probably laugh at them. Like there's no way you can compete in today's e-commerce environment with that kind of a strategy. But surprisingly, we find time and time again that that's exactly what people do with products and their product feeds. And what's crazy about that is even your bids are always changing on the campaign side. But when it comes to your products, you're constantly adding new products. You could be a fast fashion retailer who's constantly coming out with new products. Maybe 20% of your products are new every week. And yet people are not really going back and optimizing not just new ones, but existing ones. So what we find when we look at Google Merchant Center and look at the product errors and warnings is an account could have somewhere between 10 and 40% on average of what we see. just completely disapproved. And oftentimes those are best-selling products that you just can't sell. And so some people think that they've totally saturated Google Shopping when in fact they just haven't really optimized for it. And we see the same thing on a lot of different other channels too, like Microsoft Ads and Facebook and Amazon as well.
Yeah.
So definitely don't have a set it and forget it approach. Constantly check, constantly test too. It's very important to make sure that you're constantly watching for Google Merchant Center errors and warnings, that you're also testing to make sure that as changes happen or if Google can't crawl your website landing page, that you resolve it, because otherwise these could be your best sellers that, could result in easily thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of lost revenue over a few weeks that, might otherwise not be tested. We actually dealt with a client, a pretty large retailer who had a team of 2 people who were alternating checking the Google Merchant Center every other day. And if one of them forgot to do it, they'd have to wear a dunce cap. So when we heard about that, we realized, like, wait a second, this is such a manual task. So what we created is an API connection that can automatically check your Google Merchant Center for you. So that's what we use internally at Feedonomics to constantly be vigilant of any kind of errors and sorts of customizable features that allow you to say, because GTINs, for example, have been a super thorny issue ever since they became a more or less required field. So you might be able to say, don't alert me on GTINs, but alert me on every other kind of error and warning.
Got it.
And that's really key to not having a set it and forget it approach, because there's so much lost revenue in just products that are not even eligible to be listed or seen. So that's kind of what one component that I can't stress highly enough. Like, we see it time and time again, and it's a really important one to competing today.
For sure. Awesome. Well, Brian, we're super thankful for your time, man, and we hope that you guys get some new users out of this, as we're going to put some resources behind getting the word out. We may do a follow-up, more deeper dive, and we know who to call.
Awesome.
Cool.
Great meeting you guys too, and it's been awesome working with you guys so far. I've heard only great things from the account managing team. So
awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for inviting me for this.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
bye.
All right, everyone. So today we have an in-person hello meeting with Reese Garcia, our own director of e-commerce. I cannot even see your eyes when I look across because like the filter is right above like your entire face.
Yeah.
But thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Cool. So I just came back from a John Mayer concert last night, so I'm a little tired. Got the John Mayer t-shirt on, Curfew Boys. What does it say here too? It says, we hit it to the minute. So what I basically mean by that is that I'm just happy that you're here, that you can do most of the talking. I can just like smile and nod and then hit this like chicken sound button as many times as possible.
I'm down.
Cool. And being on brand too, thank you for that. You have a Chick-fil-A drink as well.
I do, yeah. I wasn't sure if I should move this or not, since we also have the cameras recording and if it's like free advertising or whatever, but
it's free advertising.
Yeah,
Everybody
sure.
likes Chick-fil-A.
Right. Here, show the camera.
The only downside is that you did not have nuggets, I noticed, right? You had a burger, a chicken sandwich.
That's right. Not even the fried one, just the grilled one.
Oh my God, that's not on brand. So
no, it's not.
Maybe we'll take this out. So with the other segments that we had for this episode about Google Shopping, we talked about some basics. We talked about feeds as well too, and the importance of that. We're going to dive into a little bit about like what you've helped create for our own best practices at Client Boost for our e-commerce team too. So I know that we have some different things that have been around that we've kind of like accelerated in regards to putting a name on it and things like that too. So of all the things that we've cooked up over the time, which one do you want to start with?
That's a really good question. So I'd like to start off by talking about the gold pan technique.
Okay.
And I feel honestly like if you're really trying to figure out, what's the best next thing that I can do for my shopping campaigns, if you're like a big 80-20 person, I honestly think that's the next best one that you should go after if you're not doing it yet.
Okay.
So
not to be confused with the gold rush back in the day, because if you Google the gold pan technique, everything out there is going to show you how you actually use a gold pan, literally. In regards to Google Shopping, like give us a breakdown. Yeah.
So basically with the gold pan technique, we're really trying to eliminate the big problem that we have with shopping, which is, why can't I target a specific search term, right? Like we deal with search campaigns all day, where it's like, we have no problem deciphering the search intent because we know exactly what we're going after. We define the exact keyword.
Exactly.
With shopping campaigns, because everything is defined by the feed and your product titles, your other data in there is going to affect the kind of traffic that you bring alongside your bid, of course. The gold pan techniques helps us cut past all that ambiguity and say, like, I want to target John Mayer t-shirts or concert t-shirts.
Yes, there's quite a few of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, to do that, we set up a 2-campaign structure. So we've got 2 shopping campaigns as opposed to 1.
Okay.
And the next important part is campaign priorities. Basically, a priority tells Google, if you have the same product in more than 1 campaign, which one does it pick first? Yep, high, medium, low. So if it's high, Google's going to say, okay, well, we'll prioritize this campaign first, medium, second, low, third.
Okay.
So what you do is you have those 2 campaigns set up, and you can force your lower priority campaign to pick up the exact search terms that you want by excluding them from your higher priority campaign.
How do you do that?
So basically, the high priority campaign is going to serve first for everything, right? So like, let's just say we sell a whole bunch of t-shirts. And so we want John Mayer t-shirts are our top selling item.
Yep.
So we're going to say, okay, well, let's add this as a negative to our high priority campaign. It's going to be forced to go down to our duplicate lower priority campaign, and we're actually going to bid higher on it there because we know that John Mayer t-shirts are so profitable. That negative means there's nowhere else for it to go but that lower priority campaign.
Got it. And so is that because the higher priority campaign that it was excluded from is not allowing the specific John Mayer, because like the other campaign is performing better for the specific John Mayer? Does that mean the bigger campaign or the higher priority campaign is doing like bidding on just like t-shirts in general, or how does that set up?
Yeah, it's basically going to capture everything else that the feed allows us to, except for those exact negatives that we're pushing down to our lower priority campaign.
Okay.
And the way that we make sure those 2 are always going to be in sync is that we have a shared budget.
Okay.
And so the shared budget means that they're always going to stay in the same auction together, because you could look at that and you could say, oh, okay, well, if our lower priority campaign is where we're harvesting everything that has better returns, then why not just give that campaign a bigger budget, and our high priority generic campaign that captures everything that we're not explicitly calling out, give that one a small budget to minimize our lower returns. So sounds great in theory, but what would actually happen there is, let's say we're doing that. We have a small budget for our generic campaign running separately from our really good campaign meant to harvest the good stuff. So what happens is that generic campaign is capturing a much broader group of search terms. If it exhausts its budget early in the day, there's nowhere else for all that other traffic to go to, except to be picked up by our lower priority campaign. So what you have now is basically just a campaign that says it's like for really good search terms, but it's actually picking up everything.
Okay, cool. Another example that, because it's very, very timely. So because you mentioned 2 levels to this, right? The other example that I want to talk about is we just created our Client Boost basketball team. And I went bananas on like the swag, and we've done a lot of like intramural, like kickball, volleyball. Nobody gets anything cool, but because I like basketball, we like just go all out. So I went to the Nike store. I got like basically matching tops, like jerseys, shorts. And then on the basketball shoe side, I wanted to see if we can make an example of this. Basically bought like the Paul George 3 all black, because like that was literally the only Nike basketball shoe that actually matched like the rest of our outfits, which anybody listening, we're going to be looking completely ridiculous as the only team that is completely from head to toe matching and making sure that we're on the same part. But can you also do this with 3 levels, meaning like you have somebody searching for basketball shoes generic, then Nike basketball shoes is a little bit more specific, and then third, you have like Paul George Nike basketball shoe. Does that still work that same way?
Yeah, you can totally do that 3rd level.
Okay.
And so basically it's really just kind of level up everything by 1 that we talked about in the last example. So instead of just a high and medium priority campaign or a medium and low, you're going to be using all 3 of those priorities in conjunction together.
Okay.
And in your high priority campaign, you're going to be excluding your brand stuff, and let's just call that 3rd level SKU. So you're excluding both of those from your high priority campaign. Your second one is going to capture like those Nike shoes, like you mentioned, as opposed to just shoes. From that one, you're excluding just the SKU. And so your third one's going to be the one that picks up that Paul George Nike basketball shoe.
So when you say excluding the SKU, like you're meaning like the Paul George specific, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like product name, SKU, however you want to call it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Anything else on the gold pan technique other than like, I think people actually understand like the analogy now too of like you're sifting through, and you might even have like 3 gold pans that are going through, and at the bottom you're actually getting to the point where you're routing the search terms that have the highest ROAS capability to go to the correct location, because your bid's going to be matching the likelihood of them actually buying.
Exactly.
So, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And so anything I'm missing? Is that it?
So I'll mention one thing. This might segue into another one that we could talk about, SPAGs. So something that we've also been doing lately is we've been doing kind of like multiple levels of the gold pan technique. And so as opposed to just having, 2 or 3 campaigns running as a gold pan across the whole board, we'll actually say, okay, well, what are the top sellers for this client? What are their maybe, 5% best products or like top 10 best sellers? And so we'll actually create a gold pan just for those.
Okay.
That way we know we're maxing out impression share for these best-selling products. And then everything else, we might segment by category or brand or product type, whatever makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And everything else is kind of pushed out as a secondary gold pan. So we're basically trying to answer 2 main questions with that structure, which are how can we maximize revenue, profits, visibility for our best-selling products?
Yeah.
And then how can we do that for our best converting search terms?
Got it. So the gold pan technique isn't just only reliant on the levels of search terms coming through. It could be, like you said, the product category, things like that you decide on, that you can be creative with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's a strategy that you can kind of plug into other aspects of campaign structure.
Cool. Awesome. So let's talk about single product ad groups, not to be confused with something that we all like from a control perspective, from a granularity perspective, which is single keyword ad groups. How do you even manage single product ad groups?
Yeah. So I think the trick right there is it's kind of a balance, because if you're a huge retailer, like if you're, Target, I don't even know if I could count how many SKUs they have, like 100,000 SKUs or something. Yeah. You don't want to manage 100,000 SKAGs. That's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So for like the structure I mentioned earlier, where we carve out like the top 10 or top 5%, that's if you're a bigger retailer and you have a few that you really want to call out.
Okay.
If you're a small retailer and you have maybe like 20, or not even small, but just a smaller product catalog. If you have 20, 25, maybe 50 products max, then sure, you can spag those out.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, some of the benefits of that, you can get very granular. You can set the exact bid by product, exactly how much you want to pay per product. The thing that I like even more is that you can see the exact search terms that are being triggered for each of your products when you look at the search terms at the ad group level.
Yeah. And that kind of gives you, there's no deeper level of control out there right now, is there?
Right. Yeah.
And so that makes a ton of sense too. People really want to make sure that they are getting enough impression share and maxing that out, as long as their ROAS is something they're happy with, and they can control the bid, which is sometimes a little all over the place if they don't have like that type of granularity.
Exactly. Yeah. And you could manage like item IDs at the product group level for bid granularity there. I think the extra big lever is, do you want to see the exact search terms that are bringing in those sales? And do you need to funnel stuff to a more specific version of that product?
Yeah. And because a lot of times what we've seen, and this might lead into our third thing that we want to talk about, is when there is ambiguity or inconsistencies with the search terms and where they're going for which products. It leads to something that reminds me of Al Capone. What do we call that?
Yeah, the mob effect.
The mob effect.
Yeah.
We should have a machine gun, but we don't. We have a chicken. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So the mob effect really just seemed like the right way to phrase this thing that I was looking at. So I remember, this was a while back when we kind of came up with the term, and looking at some of the really early e-com clients that we were bringing in and just seeing the initial structures that were set up. A lot of times, I feel like it's less common these days, but a lot of times I would see they've got one shopping campaign, one ad group, and one product group for all products. And so this particular example I'm thinking of, they had at least like 300 products in their catalog.
Yeah.
And these are things ranging from like, you know, a $20 pack of cables to like a $8,000 like multi-camera security system.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's like, do you really want to bid $1 for everything from $20 to $7,500?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what ends up happening is when you have one product group for all products like that, you're bidding the same thing for everything. But a lot of times there's a couple of products, maybe one or two, a few that stand out from the pack that just happen to be the most searchable, or they happen to get a little bit of favor by Google's algorithm.
Yeah.
And so you've got 300 products now, but you're spending like 90% of your ad spend on this like handful of products, like literally numbers you can count on your hand.
Right.
And you're getting like 30% of your sales from 90% of your ad spend.
Yeah.
The equation ends up totally lopsided. And that's how you see, you know, like, oh, I've got a ROAS of like 0.5 or something like that. If you have a bigger catalog, it's just those that happen to be searchable eating up almost all of your ad spend.
Right.
So we call that the mob effect, because it's basically like, you know, you're paying out all this money. You're not even really
To
getting
run your
anything.
little pizzeria that you're not even making that much, you're not being that efficient or effective with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just know like, oh, well, you know, my ads are serving. They're like, yeah, like just pay into a, you know, you'd be unfortunate if your product wasn't seen.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
You already have a great voice, but that was a whole other level, Reese. Thank you. Very, very cool. And like you said too, it's not as common as you see that anymore. And I was gonna make a joke earlier, but I'll attempt it now. It's like, well, you don't really see as many mobsters anymore either in real life, right? So,
Yeah.
But why don't we have that button? Cool. Anything else that we're missing on the things that we just spoke about? The 3 top things.
No, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty solid rundown of all those things. I think I have like one more nugget I could throw in.
We're ready. Let's go.
Sure. So I wanted to throw this one in just because I feel like it's something that comes up a lot. This kind of goes back to our conversation with Kirk about feeds. But a lot of times people will ask like, oh, should I be including my brand name in my product title?
Yeah.
And so there's a few answers to that question. It just depends on what your business is.
Okay.
So if your brand is relevant to that product, like if you're Nike, for example, and people know your brand, it's directly related to why they want your product.
Right.
Then
The
yeah,
Paul
like,
George
yeah,
sneakers. Yeah.
exactly. Both of those, like we described them as Nike Paul George sneakers.
Yep.
Those should all be at the front of that product title.
Okay.
So, for example, like let's say that that your John Mayer shirt, if it came from premiumconcerttees.com.
It definitely did.
Yeah, definitely did. So a lot of times people are going to be like, I want a John Mayer shirt. Like it doesn't really matter where it comes from.
Yep.
So in your product title, you want that to be about a John Mayer shirt. It doesn't need to be like premiumconcerttees.com John Mayer shirt.
Because nobody associates those two together, basically.
Exactly.
You can buy it from a lot of different places, but it doesn't need to be from premium whatever.com you just said.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that point, you could fall into one of two buckets where are you a reseller where people, basically you're selling a lot of goods of different brands. People are usually going to care more about like that first party brand rather than the reseller brand. So make sure that the product brand is front and center. And, you know, if you do get like traffic for your brand name, like if you're a Nordstrom, people are probably going to search like Nordstrom. So you can have that either at the end of your product title, or you can just rely on your domain being in the feed. And the second one is if you're a startup, like for example, like imagine if we were talking about Away Luggage a few years ago.
Sure.
By
the way, let's like really quick, Away Luggage is that startup that has a lifetime warranty with a battery built in to charge your phone as you're going abroad or whatever, right? And like I don't know what else is different about them, but like that's apparently it. And like they're crushing it, and like you know about them, I know about them, but we didn't even talk about them before this episode.
Yeah.
There you just go. There's your point. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. And if this were, you know, a few years ago, if we had no idea who they were yet, if they weren't big, then we might say like, oh, okay, well, people are searching for luggage first, right? So put Away toward the end of that product title. That way it's not obscuring the actual product search. Now, if we're talking today, for example, definitely have Away at the front of that product title because they're huge now, like we just said.
Yep.
But it just depends on whether or not you're a known brand or a startup at that point.
Makes sense. So if we ever sell any e-com products, we will be making sure to put Reese Garcia at the beginning of that because it's becoming more well known. Reese, appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming by. Give me a handshake. Give me a pound. Sorry, that was a little awkward. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
We'll get back to it. But you guys, thank you for listening. We'll have you back on another segment.
Cool.
Appreciate it.